So this is a talk on Hitler and the aliens. It's based on a talk I delivered in 2019, and this is an extended version of it. I'm going to look at some weird things and their connection to modern physics. And the first thing I'm going to look at is the word Volk. Translates into English as folk, and by a bit of stretching it translates into folklore. So I've got this clip here explaining what the word Volk means.
By his own testimony, as recorded in the pages of Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler was a fully formed Volkish German nationalist from an early age. There is no easy equivalent of the word Volkish in the English language, and it has very little connection with the slightly whimsical word folk, as we commonly use the word to express our concept of folklore or folk music. Nonetheless, the word in German, Volkisch, is often erroneously translated into the English folkish, which gives entirely the wrong connotations. In German, for those on the left of the political spectrum, the word Volk represents the equivalent of the German people, and under the reign of Adolf Hitler, Volkisch nationalism evolved into a sinister melange of esoteric mystical and beliefs which today are banded under the term of occult. Hitler is personified as the architect of the occult aspects of Nazi Party doctrine, but was he really the sole driving force behind this bizarre phenomenon? Hitler's role in the occult aspects of the Third Reich is one of the last mysteries surrounding Adolf Hitler.
So, via the word Volk, you end up with it connecting to what the English call the occult, and the occult is all tied into beliefs about Atlantis and other things like that. So this is Madame Blavatsky. She was a philosopher and so forth, involved in the esoteric movement, and it's all sort of to deal with the occult. So I've got a film clip dealing with that as well. So we'll do this video clip on her now.
Racism was one of the fundamental values of the Volkisch movement, and those values were shaped by a highly unlikely individual. She was the eccentric Russian mystic and adventuress, Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, and she claimed to have telepathic powers.
Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was a self-professed psychic and mystic. She was the founder of the Theosophical Society, and her ideas were highly influential in right-wing Volkisch circles.
So the point I want to emphasize is that she was in telepathic contact with unknown entities. And this is the occult. So what these entities are, what would they be? Demons or spirits or aliens or whatever. Yet a similar thing with what was the Veer Society. Now this person wrote a book called The Coming Race. It was written in 1871. The story is about a superior subterranean master race that used some occult power called the Vril, and the occultists like Blavatsky sort of took on those ideas and accepted it as some sort of occult truth. And so what came out of this idea was the Vril Society, supposedly a secret community of occultists in pre-Nazi Berlin. A lot of it gets been boiled in controversy, like some people get skeptical about, did such a thing really exist? But it seems to have been a society that was into the same sort of occult beliefs as Madame Blavatsky. So I'll be doing a film clip on that now.
In 1919, just 1 year after Crowley's Amalanthra workings in New York City, members of an occult group in Germany called the Vril Society claimed to have established telepathic contact through trance medium Maria Orsic with beings from the Aldebaran star system in the constellation of Taurus. These aliens were said to have actually gifted the Vril Society with flying saucer technology. Even famed German rocket engineer Hermann Oberth himself admitted the success of German technological advances during the war was thanks in part to the people of other worlds.
So there seems to be a lot of people around pre-World War II as mediums in contact with unknown entities via telepathy. And they seem to be associated with Hitler and his cohorts. And also Crowley was involved around in this sort of thing. So this is Aleister Crowley, born 1875. He was an English occultist and a magician in the sense of actually doing occult magic rather than conjuring magic. He formed a religion called Thelema, and he identified himself as a prophet associated with that, with the Horus being an Egyptian god. So it all ties into a belief in sort of ancient Egyptian religion as well. I saw a lot of these things are getting merged together. So this is a clip on explaining about Crowley.
The alleged superhuman intelligence contacted by Aleister Crowley during his visit to Egypt was named Aiwass, who declared, "I am a god of war and vengeance," and then dictated to Crowley a work called the Book of the Law, which prophesied wars and revolutions, leading to the collapse of Christian civilizations and the dawn of the Aeon of Horus. Crowley's Bible also proclaims the law of Thelema, usually summed up in 3 mantra-like verses. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And every man and every woman is a star. According to another Crowley student, Kenneth Grant, Aiwass is an extraterrestrial from Sirius, the stellar representation of the Egyptian goddess Isis. Years later, from January through March of 1918, Crowley began another series of sexual magic ceremonies in New York City called the Amalanthra Workings, in a Central Park West apartment to intentionally open a portal of entry allowing demonic and other similar entities a passageway to access our earthly world reality. Crowley was convinced that seeking contact with supernatural beings offered the only salvation to the human race. My observation of the universe convinces me that there are beings of intelligence and power of a far higher quality than anything we can conceive of as human, that they are not necessarily based on the cerebral and nervous structures that we know, and that the one and only chance for mankind to advance as a whole is for individuals to make contact with such beings. His ritual in New York established contact with an entity called Lam. Lam being a Tibetan word for pathway or pathfinder. Lam was considered to be of interdimensional origin, which was the term then for extraterrestrial. Crowley's drawing of Lam bears a striking resemblance to what has become commonly referred to as the gray aliens. Slight-bodied, big-headed, large, dark-eyed mannequin creatures which are primarily an American phenomenon. And it is interesting to note that all the Lam workings were done in America. Reports of these UFO-associated entities later became prevalent in the popular culture of the 1980s thanks to Whitley Strieber's best-selling book, Communion, as well as many of the Hollywood alien movies that would follow. The rift in between the spaces of the stars, created by the Amalantra working, opened a gateway through which Lam and other extra-cosmic influences could enter the known universe, and more specifically, our Earth-world reality. But according to occultists involved in such things, the portal has since widened, thanks in part to additional hermetic tinkering by Jack Parsons.
So all of that gets weird. Aleister Crowley, occultist dealing with dark side of magic, contacting entities using telepathy and doing ritual magic and things, and sort of, so really need to know whether telepathy is real or not. Now this book by Upton Sinclair dealt with mental radio, in other words it's dealing with telepathy, and Einstein was interested in this and he gave a preface to this book. So it's all this background around before Hitler started all his World War II problems. Now this person is a Nikola Tesla. He's a Serbian American inventor, electrical engineer and so forth, and he made a lot of amazing inventions, and he was also doing things like radio pioneer. And he was born 1856 and he died in the middle of World War II. There is a bit of controversy by some people, they think maybe he was murdered, but moving on to that, I'll do a clip on that now.
Tesla was damaging his credibility. He tarnished it even further by claiming that late one night he received signals from Mars.
His instrumentation was doing some weird flipping around, and he was claiming that it was communications from space. It may have been gamma rays or cosmic rays, even radio waves. The fact that he interpreted it as communication from alien beings or Martians made people begin to doubt him.
His fertile imagination, so critical to his inventive powers, was betraying him. That same year, an Italian electrical engineer, Guglielmo Marconi, sent a wireless message across the English Channel. Tesla dismissed him. Marconi possesses more enterprise than knowledge. Let him continue. He's using 17 of my patents.
So Tesla was claiming that he thought he had contact with aliens, or what in his day was called Martians, and the people who are into the occult and believe in telepathy. So such things as geniuses such as Tesla were getting the information sent to them telepathically from these entities, aliens. So the brain is somehow a receiver for telepathic messages from aliens or entities, whatever they are. Now, bringing in about the ancient Egypt, these ideas of the occult go back a long way. They go back to people like Pythagoras, who was around 570 BC, and he was a Greek philosopher, and you get from him the idea that the universe is governed by mathematics and the music of the spheres and so forth. So the music of the spheres is an expression that refers to the intertwined relationship connecting the structures of music and those of the physical world, and conscious awareness of mystical or spiritual qualities being transmitted through composed sound. So you're talking about vibrations or waves and that sort of idea. And you can compare that with a lot of the physics we know nowadays, like light is an electromagnetic wave, i.e. it's a vibration. It's got a wavelength, an amplitude of its electric field and its magnetic field, and this wave sort of like moves along. So Pythagoras seemed to be onto that idea, that of a wave sort of thing. And the visible spectrum is only a small part of a larger spectrum of electromagnetic waves. You've got gamma rays, X-rays, and infrared rays and radio waves and so forth. So you've got this massive spectrum of waves. Now, when you look into the world around us, it seems to be the ancient wisdom is still there within the architecture. And so forth. The word Paris, the origin of the word seems to be people of Isis, and Isis is an ancient Egyptian goddess. So you've got this ancient Egyptian ideas still being transmitted to us in our culture and our tradition, to even such names as like Paris. And now in this TV program is Forbidden History by Jamie Teaxon. He pointed out that Place de la Concorde, there is what is laid out in ancient Egyptian temple, which seems to indicate that somebody is still even very interested in pagan ideas such as ancient Egypt, and they're still putting this into our architecture all around us. There are also similar things in other cities such as London. It's in our architecture. What I think is there has been a long hidden tradition of this sort of pagan thing going on, with people thinking that they are in some sort of telepathic contact with these otherworldly entities. So when Germany suddenly made a technological advance in World War II with jets and rockets, etc., that hidden tradition was it was coming from these aliens or entities, or whatever you want to call them. If you get back to Tesla, he was saying lots of strange things, such as he thought this gave a great source of energy.
He invented this device called the Tesla coil, which enabled him to generate enormously high voltage. It could take low AC voltage and build up inside the coil an enormous amount of energy, and then through a spark discharge release all of that energy very, very quickly.
As one reporter put it, Tesla acted the part of a veritable magician.
That sort of thing is connected to the idea of free energy, and that's supposedly suppressed. And this sort of energy could be used to open other dimensions. When you think of the universe as having more than the 3 dimensions of space and the one of time, then maybe if you had a large amount of energy, you could open a portal. That sort of idea is taken up by science fiction, a lot of science fiction films where you get portals, wormholes and so forth. This is an interesting picture, and this is one of the things that the Germans were supposedly trying to do, build a flying saucer like this. So now this person is Feynman. He was a physicist, American theoretical physicist. He got a Nobel Prize, and I'm going to go to a clip on him, I hope, because a lot of weird ideas were around in Germany for World War II, a belief in paranormal occult, and Germany was also the centre for theoretical physics, as emphasised by this next video clip. So let's play this clip.
Feynman was asked if he wanted to join a top secret project based in a government laboratory at Los Alamos in New Mexico. Codenamed Manhattan, its objective was to build an atom bomb. The fear was that Germany would invent such a terrifying new weapon first and use it to win the war.
There was nothing that I knew that indicated that if we could do it, they couldn't do it, and therefore it was very important to try to cooperate.
Germany was the center, the intellectual center of theoretical physics. They knew the power of this, that if Germany got this first, we have to make sure that they don't rule the world.
So you got Germany as the centre of theoretical physics before World War II, and it was also a sort of centre for all these weird cult traditional ideas about contacting entities using telepathy.
Feynman was asked if he wanted
After World War II, a lot of German scientists went to work for NASA. An example of that is this person, von Braun, a rocket scientist. Now NASA has a lot of weird occult connections. So I'll play this clip now.
And yet, while a decade of NASA's spaceflight wizardry enthralled a nation of television viewers almost nightly, the truth of NASA's deeply dark, occult origins was discreetly hidden from public awareness. Origins linked, perhaps, to the most wicked of occult practitioners in modern history. None other than self-proclaimed Satanist Aleister Crowley himself. This uncanny convergence of science and mysticism was facilitated by the rocket pioneer genius and founder of Caltech's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, John Whiteside Parsons. In the years just prior to the Second World War, Jack Parsons and a handful of his Caltech buddies were working to perfect solid fuel rocket propulsion. Parsons' rocket project limped along on a shoestring budget until his efforts drew serious attention from the Defense Department. Thanks to the war, his research expanded into a major rocket design enterprise that would become known as the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, JPL, which in turn would develop a vital association with more advanced space rocket design proposed by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. But Jack Parsons was possessed with extraordinary ideas that sought far loftier heights than mere space rocket designs. Parsons was fascinated by the occult, and in 1941 he was to join the Pasadena chapter of Ordo Templi Orientis, Aleister Crowley's secret society. Not long after, Parsons took over the Agape Lodge himself. Observing Parsons' natural aptitude for ritual sex magic, called Thelema, the membership saw him as a potential successor to the great beast, Aleister Crowley himself, whom Parsons addressed as Most Beloved Father.
So after all those weird things, the issue becomes, one, is telepathy real? And if telepathy is real, the question becomes, are entities using telepathy to communicate with humans? And if the answer is yes to that, is our science coming from these entities? Question mark. It's all very weird. You've got this convergence of mysticism, occultism, and everything around before, at the start of World War II. And then you've got this sudden advance in technology of the Germans, the Nazis.